On Capitol Hill, House staffers were notified that they will miss their first paychecks on Friday due to the government shutdown. In a memo obtained by CBS News, the House Chief Administrative Officer said payments will go out as soon as Congress reopens the government. California Republican Congressman Kevin Kiley is here with us now. Thank you, Congressman, for being here. You get extra bonus points for being here in person. And you are a bit of a rare species these days in D.C. You're a rank-and-file House Republican who's actually in town.
It really shouldn't be that rare, but yeah, it is what it is these days. The good news is more and more have been coming back into town.
You have any sense when the Speaker's going to bring you all back?
I don't. I mean, he seems to have indicated that it's once the government is back open. Of course, my view is we have a lot of other things we could be doing right now, and it probably would help to get the government back open if we actually had the House of Representatives in town.
I think given that you are a member of Congress and Americans across the country are wondering why on earth is this taking so long, it's worth asking you, beyond the rhetorical arguments you might make about the other side, what have you done today or in recent days to try to reopen the government?
Well, for my part, I've been trying to have conversations with folks on both sides of the aisle, and because I have made a point of actually being here since even though the House is out of session, a lot of people have stopped by my office, have called and said, how can we find some common ground here? So we've had some very constructive conversations. That's the good news. Bad news is, of course, the government remains closed with really just escalating consequences for millions of Americans.
And what's the incoming from constituents like in terms of, I'm trying to get a government service that is or is not available right now? Are you dealing with a lot of that as well?
Yeah, of course, people are exasperated. I mean, we're talking about, people losing access to critical services, food assistance that they're not going to be getting, air traffic controllers having to show up without paychecks, all because politicians in Congress aren't doing their job. It's no wonder Congress has a 13% approval rating with the American public right now.
Now, you're here predominantly to discuss what California voters will be considering next week, which is Proposition 50, this idea that the state's redistricting commission would be suspended until after the 2030 census, allowing the legislature to redraw the lines essentially in favor of the majority party of the Democrats and respond, in essence, to what went on in Texas. You're opposed to this as a Republican member of Congress, and you've put forth legislation that would essentially stop this from happening across the country. But there are at least 9 states right now, either through legislation or lawsuits, that are doing this. And I wonder what you make of this snowballing that continues to proceed across the country.
Yeah, I think it's terrible. It's exactly what I warned about months ago, is this sort of domino effect. That's why I proposed legislation saying that this should not happen anywhere. We shouldn't be doing these mid-decade gerrymanders. We should only be redrawing district lines once every 10 years after the census. And so my legislation would apply to every single state. And for the same reason, I've argued that we shouldn't pass Prop 50 in California because gerrymandering is wrong. It doesn't matter if it's happening in Texas or in Virginia or in Illinois or in California, and our voters should reject it in the one place we can, and that's our own state.
62% of Californians say in our recent poll, though, that they're voting for this. Why are they wrong?
I've seen numbers across the board, 56, 62. The reality is when you ask Californians, do you believe that district lines should be drawn by an independent citizens commission, or do you think that lines should be drawn by politicians? Overwhelmingly, Californians say they like our Independent Citizens Commission. The Yes on 50 campaign has tried to confuse the issue and make this campaign about a lot of other things. But my message to voters is simply that if you disagree with gerrymandering, then you should vote no, because this proposition is about one thing and one thing alone, and that is to bring California back to the era of political gerrymandering, and not just any gerrymander, what Princeton University has called one of the 2 worst gerrymanders of the last 50 years.
You guys, I keep hearing Republicans in California call it an independent redistricting commission, but it is Democrats, Republicans, and a handful of independents working together, right? And they're appointed by either party?
They're appointed by the state auditor. It's independent in the sense that redistricting is done independent of politicians. You're actually not allowed to serve on the commission if you have run for elected office, and they're required to follow statutory and constitutional guidelines for making districts fair.
Now, is it fair to blame your party and President Trump for all of this, given that he was the one that was asking Texas to find 5 more seats?
I think there's plenty of blame to go around. I mean, the funny thing is, I mean, not funny at all, but just the crazy thing is that, you know, every single state that's done it can say that they're doing it in response to some other state. So, you know, Newsom would say, well, Texas, what they did is a bad gerrymander, but California in response, that's a good gerrymander. But what about all these other states that you mentioned? North Carolina is coming next, and then Virginia, one for Democrats, one for Republicans. Are those good or bad gerrymanders? Even Texas, they would tell you, oh, no, we're doing this in response to New York or some other state. So the logic just leads to this race to the bottom that degrades democracy everywhere. So the one thing that voters can do to respond to this is say, no, we're not going to do this. We're not going to continue this race to the bottom. We're going to protect fair representation in our own state.
Yours is a big district. You reminded me, runs from Lake Tahoe, Mammoth Lake down near Sacramento and then further south. However they redraw it, do you run again?
Of course, yeah. I mean, I believe that I've delivered results from my district that transcend party lines. I actually got the most crossover votes in the last election, the second most of any competitive district in the country, meaning people who voted for Kamala for president but voted for me as their representative. And so I believe that whatever, you know, the map ends up looking like, I'll be able to win re-election. But I would very much prefer to continue to represent the 3rd district, the beautiful 3rd district as currently constituted.
Well, like I said, kudos for at least being in town and for stopping by in person. Congressman Kevin Kiley, thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.